Welcome to The Critique. Today, we're looking at a piece about a Kochi entrepreneur, Nimesh, who tragically lost nearly 25 crore rupees in an online trading scam. Okay, so the piece does a really good job laying out the financial loss. Huge numbers, 24.76 crore. And the mechanics of the scam itself, well, they're detailed quite clearly.
They are, yeah. The timeline, the figures, it's all there. But I guess my question is, how do we make the audience feel that loss? Feel the nightmare beyond just the shocking amount?
Right. Is Nimesh's internal journey, his psychological state as this whole thing unfolds, is that connection fully established? Or is that maybe something we could strengthen?
Exactly. I think to truly engage the audience and get across the sheer gravity of this, the material could really benefit from externalizing the protagonist's emotional and psychological journey throughout the scam more powerfully.
Okay, so that's our first main point.
Yeah. Right now, we see the factual progression really well. The first contact, the transfers, the final realization, it's all chronicled.
Meticulously even.
But it leans more towards recounting what Nimish did and how the scam worked rather than really immersing us in his head. His hopes rising, the seduction of seeing those fake profits build up.
And then that creeping dread, the betrayal.
Precisely. It's informative, definitely, but maybe it stops the audience from fully connecting with the profound personal devastation the title hints at.
I see that. So the suggestion is to, infuse the narrative with more vivid detail about Nimesh's inner world.
Yes, exactly. Illustrate that psychological journey. We need to show, not just tell, the emotional hit at each stage. As trust is built, as he invests more money, as that illusion starts cracking.
Okay, let's think about concrete ways to do that. For example, instead of just saying, the app shows impressive gains, encouraging him to pour in more.
Right. What if we described a specific moment? Maybe Nimesh checking the Capital X app late at night, seeing that first, 15% jump.
Oh, okay. Like, describe his disbelief, maybe? And then that rush of excitement?
Yeah, that feeling of I've cracked it. How it maybe validated his own sense of being a smart investor, pulling him deeper in. What did that first fake success feel like?
Good point. Was it just a quick thrill, or did it fundamentally shift how he saw his financial future?
Exactly. And those 96 transactions from 23 different bank accounts, that's a staggering statistic.
It is.
So let's move beyond the numbers. Let's try to show the growing compulsion, or maybe the deliberateness behind some of those transfers.
What sacrifices was he making? Was he diverting funds from his actual business, family money?
Perhaps? Driven by this alluring promise on the screen, right? Did he rationalize bigger and bigger sums? Maybe even argue with himself, pushing down doubts because the app looked so convincing?
We want to convey that almost hypnotic pull, the calculated risks fueled by this illusion.
Mm-hmm. And then the crash. That moment when panic sets in as realization dawns. We need to make that visceral.
How do we do that? Pinpoint the trigger?
Yeah, maybe. What exactly made the doubt finally crystallize? Was it a change in Daniel's tone during a withdrawal attempt? That shift from reassuring to evasive?
Or maybe a really flimsy excuse that just didn't add up anymore?
Together. That specific, gut-wrenching moment of dawning horror.
The cold realization hitting him.
That's what would amplify the sense of betrayal, the true personal cost.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Let's shift gears a bit. Critique point 2, the global web.
Right.
The piece explains how these scams work. The mechanics are clear. And it brings in that Cyprus connection, which is fascinating, suggests a possible evolution.
And the details on pig butchering, that whole building trust thing, and using Malayalam speakers, those are sharp observations.
Definitely. But building on that, how can we make this global web feel less like a background explainer and more like an active force, something directly impacting Nimesh?
That's a great question. Is there a risk that by explaining the general mechanics, we sort of dilute the impact of how this specific, complex cross-border operation directly shaped his ordeal?
I think there might be. So the idea here is The powerful revelation of the scam's global reach, its sophistication, particularly that Cyprus link, this could be woven much more tightly into Nimesh's personal story.
Turning it from context into something more?
More like a gripping, almost cinematic element of his tragedy.
Yeah, I like that. Because right now, while the piece does broaden out to the global cybercrime scene, mentioning Cyprus, the shift from older Asian hubs, sometimes it feels a bit detached from Nimesh himself.
Like facts presented separately.
Exactly, like background briefing notes rather than forces directly amplifying his personal crisis. It's like watching a movie where you get the villain's plan explained in a voiceover instead of seeing how it directly affects the hero.
Right. So to fix that, the suggestion is to integrate these global sophisticated parts directly into the telling of Nimesh's story.
Making the invisible enemy feel more present, more formidable.
Allowing those revelations about the international origins, the cunning methods, to add layers of maybe suspense or shock.
Or even just the sense of this overwhelming, almost unbeatable adversary, enhancing the tension.
Okay, concrete examples. When Daniel first calls, speaking fluent Malayalam,
Instead of just stating it.
frame it as a calculated tactic, part of this global network's playbook.
Yes. You could write something like, that familiar voice speaking the language of his homeland, Malayalam. It wasn't just a comforting coincidence. It was, as Nimesh would later learn to his immense cost, a meticulously engineered trap.
A psychological key chosen specifically for him, deployed by an operation stretching thousands of miles across continents, maybe even ending on a Mediterranean island.
Exactly. That immediately gives that first contact a much darker, more ominous feel.
And the Cyprus call center discovery, that's a huge breakthrough for the police, right?
Massive.
So instead of just reporting it as a finding later on, maybe weave it into Nimesh's experience as he learns about it. Imagine him hearing that from the Kochi cyber police.
How did he react? Learning his betrayal came from so far away, so unexpectedly. Did it make the loss feel even more incomprehensible?
Or make the enemy seem even more powerful, more elusive. It turns the investigation part of the story into something more personal for him and for the reader following his journey.
Connecting those dots through Nimesh is key. And the mule accounts? Same idea.
How so?
We'll illustrate one specific transfer he made. Maybe it looked innocuous. Going to an account with a common Indian name seemed local.
Okay.
Then, later reveal how that very transaction vanished into this complex global network. Show the scale of the deception he was caught in.
So something like, he thought he was sending funds to maybe a local contact, someone seemingly nearby. He had no way of knowing that specific payment, just one of 96, was instantly sucked into a digital labyrinth.
Bouncing from Kochi, maybe through shadowy hubs, eventually landing continents away. A testament to the sheer audacity, the global reach of the people who stole his future.
That really demonstrates the scale he was up against. Powerful. Okay, let's move to our final point, the lessons and the impact.
Right, the takeaways.
The material does make a strong case here, highlighting the erosion of trust in digital finance, offering that survival guide for self-protection. That's commendable.
And discussing the government responses, the wider landscape, that's crucial context. The intent to inform, to empower, is clear.
It is. But could we make those lessons, those broader impacts feel even more, well, urgent, more personal, by linking them directly back to the sheer scale of Nimesh's loss?
Is that connection really hammered home? Or is there a slight disconnect between his devastating story and the more general advice that follows?
That's the question, isn't it? So the topic sentence here, to really maximize the instructional power, the societal resonance of this, the lessons, impacts, future outlook, they need to feel directly tied to the specifics of Nimesh's ordeal.
Making the general advice feel acutely personal, immediate, born from his tragedy.
Because right now, while that transition to a survival guide and broader points is necessary, it does risk, maybe just momentarily, losing the emotional momentum built up by Nimesh's story.
Yeah, the advice, while solid, could feel a bit generic. Not like urgent warnings forged in the fire of what we've just witnessed. The "so what" needs to constantly echo back to Nimesh.
Agreed. We need that thread to run all the way through. So, the suggestion is, reframe the lessons and impacts. Don't present them as standalone tips.
Make them direct, compelling takeaways that resonate specifically because of what happened to Nimesh. Constantly remind the audience of the personal cost when these warnings aren't heeded.
Keep the stakes high, right through to the call to action.
Okay, let's try some examples. When discussing verify everything,
Instead of just saying it generally.
link it to capital X. Nimesh believed in capital X. It looked legitimate, US registered, polished website, right?
Right.
This is precisely why the first lesson, verifying CBI registration for any trading platform, no matter how convincing it looks, no matter how impressive the early gains seem, is absolutely non-negotiable.
Nimesh's 24.76 crore vanished because this fundamental check, amidst all the excitement and promises, was overlooked. That gives it real weight.
Exactly. And for beware unsolicited calls, use Daniel.
He's the embodiment of that warning.
So remember Daniel, the Malayalam speaker who initiated everything? That personalized approach, the familiar voice. It wasn't random.
It was a calculated psychological tactic, a soft entry for a global fraud. This is why any unsolicited call promising easy money, no matter how friendly or familiar the voice, needs immediate, strong suspicion.
Daniel's call alone ultimately cost Nimesh everything. Connects it right back.
Perfect. And amplifying the broader impacts. We have to keep bringing it back to Nimesh's loss.
Quantify the societal costs through his experience. Instead of just stating the national figure, India's Rs 7,488 crore lost in a year.
Frame it like, Nimesh's 24.76 crore gone. A sum that could build schools, fund businesses. Now multiply that single tragedy by the thousands happening across India, reaching that staggering 7,488 crore figure reported by the I4C.
And you see, it's not just individual nightmares like Nimesh's. It's the erosion of the very trust our digital economy relies on, a foundation crumbling under the weight of this deception.
That really makes the abstract number feel personal and devastating. Okay, so recapping briefly. We've talked about deepening the psychological arc, really externalizing Nimesh's inner journey, weaving that global web, the sophisticated scam mechanics directly into his personal narrative, making it part of his tragedy.
And finally, sharpening the resonance of the lessons learned, making sure they're always tethered directly back to the immense personal cost Nimesh paid. Yeah, these are suggestions aimed at transforming what's already a strong, factual account into something even more gripping, more emotionally resonant, bringing the reader closer to Nimesh's experience, connecting the dots for them.
It should create a really powerful piece.
We genuinely hope so, and we look forward to seeing how you might implement these ideas. Please do submit your revised work back to us. We'd be very interested to see it.